Welcome back to the Leadership Forum, a space where corporate leaders share insightful takes on the human side of ingenuity. I'm Saqib Vali, explorer. Say hi to the future. The leader with us today is Sean Martin, General Manager, Numerator. Sean started his career at P&G, where we had the opportunity and it was my good fortune to work with him. Then after an assignment at GSK, Sean moved to Mars, where Sean ultimately head up strategy and insights. Just before his current role at Numerator, Sean was the Chief Business Officer at Flip. Welcome, Sean, and thank you for taking time out from your insightful schedule.
Thank you, Saqib. It's excited to have a good conversation.
So, Sean, let's let our listeners hear in your voice how you would introduce yourself to them. And if you could, take us on your career journey and thread how each assignment prepared you for the next leadership role.
Yeah, absolutely. And given the theme of today, which is exciting leadership and human ingenuity, let me try to take you through a little bit of how I view my career from that lens, from that growth lens around leadership. So the way to think about my career is I've had two parts of my career. And the early part of my career, I was lucky enough to fall into roles that I think actually drove a lot of benefit for my key opportunities and gaps as a leader. And that was my first 15 years in the CPG space. And so starting at P&G, I was incredibly lucky to work with an organization that I think is one of the best at driving real understanding of how do you run a business, the process, the thinking, the business ownership. And that was a wonderful place to grow and start my career. And along that journey to Mars, where going from a business ownership and understanding point of view to a place where I was leading a large team of people that were doing the things that I think really taught me where I get my value, where I get my excitement, where I get my energy, which is driving value. Value for the business, value for my team, value for clients. And that was in that role of strategy and insights. And so that was a critical part of my career, that CPG part, because it taught me that early in your career, you have to focus on just do well where you are, make the most of the lucky bounces you have and the chance to be around fantastic people and grow and kind of build your learning and prepare yourself for that kind of journey of finding what actually drives your energy and value as a leader, because that is what you need to be a good leader and to help others find their voice and business results. And that's what I found at Mars. I would say my second part of my career was really related to that understanding and then making conscious choices to be in places with teams, with businesses that drive value. That understanding of that's what excited me as an individual. And therefore, I made the choice in the back half of my career to jump into the tech space, and really a place that is all about creating exponential value and change at a very fast pace. And so that was something that was incredibly important to me as I went through my careers to find that kind of place and that focus area.
Yeah, and I just wouldn't call it the back half of your career, Sean. It's just that next frontier. For crying out loud, you've got so many more years of amazing value to be given. All right. No, but this is extremely helpful, Sean. Thanks for taking us through that. Because a lot of our listeners are looking for insights on how they progress their career and what are some of the choices that they need to make.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic insight because ultimately your career is your choice. And if I look at where I've landed at Numerator, probably the most challenging role I've had, but also one of the most rewarding because it actually fits really well what I love to do. And it was a conscious choice to seek out that kind of value creation. And so honestly, the chance to create value, especially in the CPG space sector, where you and I come from, data is value, understand the consumer. And so I agree with you. Being able to understand deeply what you do well and why and what drives energy, and probably the lucky chance to be able to drive that has been a fantastic choice in my career.
You know, the statement you just made is smack on topic these days, which is data is value and data drives value. And I think we'll get a lot more into that in just a little while, but I just wanted to capture that.
Yeah.
Sean, one of the conditions that we at Say Hi to the Future explore is find your voice. And you are an extremely empathetic leader. I have experienced that firsthand. So take us through the relationships you forged and how you enable people around you find their voice and help them thrive by doing so.
One of the consistent things I heard when I was just starting out, I think we tell a lot of young leaders, is everything is relationship. And you need to develop and drive relationships. And it's become a little bit of a cliche, but what one of my big learnings of is just how difficult relationship building is, and how honestly, for a lot of people, it comes much more naturally to others. It is a skill set, and some are blessed with it and some are not. And transparently, I think early in my career, I wasn't blessed with it. My focus on building a relationship was very much on metrics and winning and hitting the number. And that is how I drove and thought about value. But as I grew in my career, I think the one thing I've learned really well is building relationships to me is really about value creation and servant leadership. Making sure that you not only do you care about what other people actually care about, but realizing by surrounding yourselves with people that are different from you, that think differently than you, that are actually better than you at most things, you start to create a real importance on relationship that makes it easy to care about other people think. The other thing I realized as I think about relationships and building relationships, whether it's on the client side or on your team, is relationship building. If you do it truly, Saka, which means doing it through a lens of caring what the other person cares about, takes a lot of time and an incredible amount of energy. And so the kind of the two things that I've thought a lot about as I've tried to move from a results focused person to someone who builds relationships to get things done is two really blunt things I think about when I think about relationship building. One is being ruthless. When I mean ruthless, I don't mean ruthless in your relationship, but ruthless on your choice of what's your role in life. And I think, I learned this from a leader at P&G, actually, when we were at P&G early on in my career, and it stuck with me my whole life is you can only be five things. And you can only have five fingers. I see you laughing because I think you remember this discussion. One of the most challenging things in our social media driven world this day is that everybody has to compare themselves to like the one or two best traits of everybody else in the world. And it's impossible. We need to get really focused if you want to be successful and build relationships is understanding the five things that matter most to you and being ruthless about it. So again, I'm a father first. My wife makes everything work for me. She's also unbelievable. I married way above my level, my number, as they would say in today's world. I'm a father. I'm a business person third. And so relationships for me are important in a business context. I'm a team leader fourth. That I love my team. I love working and seeing them develop. But what it means is I may not be at every part of my life the best father or friend because I have to be ruthless on the time I have and energy. And so that's number one, being ruthless on who you are at any given time. And then the second one is being humble. And I don't mean humble from sheepish or passive aggressive Canadian humble. What I mean is, I kind of think of the old quote of not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less often. To me, that's incredibly powerful when building relationships because what it says is it's actually about knowing your worth and knowing your value, but understanding how other people are so much better at so many other things than you are and giving them a voice. And I think if you think of those two things, being ruthless with understanding what your focus and being humble and a servant leader, it makes the importance of the people in your life so much more important to you. You begin to cherish those relationships because they are critical. And it makes it much easier then to be excited about giving them a voice, excited about championing their opinions, excited about putting them at the forefront of things because transparently, they're better than you. They're better, they're smarter, they're more engaging than you. And you know that their success, because you put them close to you in your priority grid, is going to make you more successful. So it's a little bit selfish, actually, being humble.
I take that, but I mean, and I love the way you've gone about it. I'm going to just press on one aspect of this because I know you do this, right? And I just need to explore that for our listeners and our audience, right? Mm-hmm. Which is, I can completely understand how you enable people to find their voice. It's not easy for someone to find their voice, and there are challenges that people go through. Is there an area that you can sort of just say a bit more on, which how do you let an individual overcome that and help them find their voice?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of helping the people around you find their voice obviously is putting them in a position to be successful to find their voice.
That's
so
good.
Yeah, we, at Numerator especially, we've been really focused on building business ownership and letting people know that they have a voice, they have the ability to make decisions. I think parts of that I think are critical is one, you need to prepare people to have their voice. And I think of that in a couple ways. We have the development discussions, you have the focus areas. The other part of it, Sakib, that I think we've actually lost in this world is in my businesses, we do a lot of practicing. something strange happened when we all got our business degrees. Our whole life, when you were in high school, and university, you did homework to practice for your exam. If you're on a sports team, you practice 4 hours for every hour you were in the game. We all got our business degrees and everyone stopped practicing. And so we spend a lot of time with people I respect, who I love, and see they're practicing the things that they're getting ready to do to put them in a safe spot when they're ready to go and play. And so it's not only putting them in a position, but spending the time to practice and help in a way that is good intention, because you generally want them to be successful as a team. We do a lot of team practice, a lot of team role playing. We go into meetings saying, I'm going to work with you because I want you to be the best when you leave. And I think that's probably something that takes a real cool culture, but is important in today's world that we've lost.
It's funny. Just a couple of weeks back, I was at a gathering where there was a Navy SEAL there, and we were just like, I was just getting inspired. And one of the things he said, I asked that, when you are in the situation, how do you know what to do? And he says, it's training. The training just kicks in. You don't think, it just kicks in. So this whole notion and practice. I think there are three things you mentioned. One of them was, you need to prepare the people to be ready to find their own voice. You need to provide the circumstance for them to do that, and then there's practice, practice, practice. I think that's a great way to put it. Thanks a lot for that insight. Let me switch the conversation to, I'd love to get your leadership take on ingenuity, and more importantly, the human side of ingenuity as it relates to you, your organization's success. What's your take? When has it worked well? When has it not? What have you learned?
And I love this question, and I love it specifically from the human ingenuity part of you, because it got me really thinking. I actually think my business take is pretty simple. I think as I look at all the places I've been, whether it be on the CPG side, the media tech side, now the data tech side, there's very few competitive advantages that are truly sustainable. Like, I think about on the product side, there's always someone who's innovating. Your competitor is always trying to do better, take what you do well. On the market trend side, it's always shifting away from you constantly, and you're always seeking to hold on to the market trend. And so, yes, we innovate, and we innovate like crazy. I mean, Transparent Numerator is probably the best at our data and the innovation and the focus we have to make things better. However, I would probably argue that it's the curiosity of our people, the desire to solve problems, and how do you be creative, innovative, and incremental in those solving of those problems as they come at you, that has made us successful. And so as I think about ingenuity, and especially human ingenuity, it really is, to me, the competitive advantage from a business take that we've built. And I think I would strive to build in any team I'm on from now on. And as I think about, from a definition point of view, it really is, to me, not about that big bang innovation. Ingenuity is not about waking up. In fact, I've been parts of product teams where the product team is a big bang and you back into this wonderful innovation that you never thought was coming. Human ingenuity is different. Human ingenuity, to me, is really coming together, lots of minds consistently facing into problems. And so it's a lot of dozens or hundreds of mini decisions that honestly are probably made below someone like me or yourself, that are guided in the right direction, but are the power of a bunch of minds trying to solve problems. And that is, wow, if you can do that, I think that's pretty special.
Do you remember the time when the whole Swiffer conversation actually started with an observation on bounce?
Yeah.
I mean, somebody who used the bounce dryer sheet to pick up static hair from, and there were people in the focus groups, and they looked at that and they went, who knew, right? And
look
then
what it's created.
exactly, multi-billion dollar.
So, I mean, to answer the second part of your questions around when it worked and when it didn't, so let me give you a little bit of an example. It's very similar to your Swiffer example, actually. One of the things that I'm most excited about my role in Numerator, and what drives my passion, probably to the absolute frustration of my team, is that I was on that desk with you for 15 years, struggling to understand shoppers and answer these questions with probably a lack of data, especially in Canada. And now with the data set, we're finally getting to answer questions that truly drive growth. And so I want to give you a couple of examples, because I think it really highlights ingenuity of the team and how they took a great data product and made it. And so the first one for me is our focus on understanding new Canadians. And why I say it's very simple to your Swiffer example, is because that's a great example of finding a jobs to be done by talking to people different than yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, no one in Canada's business really understands enough the challenges, the behaviors, the goals of our growing new Canadian population. And so for the first time, what we realized when we were using our technology and data, we finally had a product that actually gave a voice to new Canadians. And this is a population that is driving 100% of the organic growth in Canada. And when your brand's growing at 2% a year, 100% growth of a 6% growth rate on the population seems like a very powerful thing to understand.
Sure.
But we're having a hard time unlocking it. And so we have the data, and how do you think about unlocking that data and making it successful? And I'll tell you, it wasn't me, it wasn't our powerful executive sitting in Chicago. Where we unlocked it was the coming together of a bunch of different minds, both from our client side, who started asking the questions of us, and transparently, a lot of time our success is driven by our clients challenging us, but also by the brains of the people that in our organization picking and choosing and looking at that, what really matters as we looked at that data. And it's actually kind of allowed us to launch this phenomenal new product where we're able to track not just the new Canadians and their habits and their changing, but also how it compares to subsequent generations. And to start to see the understanding of how those, and the reception has been unbelievable. In fact, I would argue, if you're a Canadian business owner today and you don't understand how your product is engaged with by new Canadians, you are locking yourself into a zero-sum share growth game and not an organic game. And so that is probably the best understanding. And then the second one I'll give you, which I think may excite you too, is like, as you know, and a lot of us business owners, we measure two things: shipments and share. And we measure it because that's what we measure. But as we all know, neither of those two measurements can you do anything about. So we're measuring things that have zero ability to impact success.
The lagging indicators, not leading indicators.
Yeah, great. And so the other really exciting innovation from a human engineer that I've seen actually has come recently for us. And it's actually come from our ex-founder, who has been a massive data focused gentleman, Jared. And he actually wrote a book where he tracked the 40 fastest growing brands or outperforming brands, and realized that because of the uniqueness of our data, the power of the data that we collect from a mobile point of view, we can actually track new metrics that are leading indicators of brand health and growth. And so no one's ever thought about this before, because we had a problem in the industry that no one ever thought we could fix, because it's always been the same. It was because of someone looking differently at it that we've come up with these 5 metrics that we are now engaging with C-suite level and just changing how they look at their brand. So two examples. I hope it kind of gives you an idea of that ingenuity.
It does. And the second one, if done too heavily, could be a bit creepy, but I understand.
Yeah.
Helpful, very helpful. Thanks a lot. How about leadership? What do you look for, groom for, and nurture in the people you hire?
When I look for people in the business, I mean, similar to the things that we've talked about already, Zaka, I look for people that have demonstrated in their past that they can make choices and be at peace with them. I don't need people that can tell me they are changing the world on every little thing in the world. I want to see making choices as the most critical thing in the business. Just as a sidebar, when we think about when does Ingenuity fail, often it's around this front, that poor understanding of leaders of making that risk reward choice and being able to make a choice. When I came to tech, one of the things that kind of was the biggest learning for me is in CPG, every decision you made, some factory changed its line and it was a multi-million-dollar decision. You couldn't walk away from it. The one wonderful thing about tech with all the change is that almost every decision is a type 2 decision. You can come back if you're willing and have the courage to fail. You can retreat from the decision and bring it back very easily. And I'm amazed in the world of human ingenuity when leaders aren't having that discussion up front on here's the risk reward and let's make a call to understand the risk of that call and leaning into it. So therefore, that's something I inherently look for people when I look for leaders, especially because I think that relates directly to resilience. And then probably the nurture. I mean, I look for and I nurture people different than myself. Nothing scares me more than sitting around to make a decision around a table and looking around and seeing 5 white bald guys like me with my same decision criteria looking back at me. And I mean, it's not just a demographic thing when we talk about diversity in the workforce. It's how people make decisions, how people engage, how they communicate. Like we strive to look for different thinking. And if I think of my leadership team at Net Numerator, I couldn't think of a stronger team, but a more different team, each and individual. So that I look for that. And part of that is when we find those differences that are strengths in individuals, especially if they're different from me, we nurture them like crazy, right? We try to build them, we try to make them stronger. So that would be my big look and nurture. I look for someone who's different, and then we nurture it and we make sure that that voice stays strong, especially the differences as they move up in the organization. And then grooming, I think for me, grooming is I think about the people that are going to be the leaders in the organization who are going to pass me on my team and lead, and I'm going to report to one day. The thing I try to groom for them is the things I would want them to be good at when they're leading me. And so for that, I spend a lot of time grooming humility and grooming curiosity and value in others. We spend a lot of time talking about differences and making sure that people understand roles and responsibilities and understand and valuing that in future leaders. That would be a big one. And then the other one, speaking to, from a grooming point of view, we spend a lot of time putting people in positions where they can fail safely, quickly, and supporting them through that. So just to recap, like what I look for, I always look for people that can make choices and be comfortable in it. I just think it's something, making a choice is a powerful, valuable asset, capability. And then people that are different than me, who understand their and nurture that. Yeah, and then we groom all the process, the business, everything else. But most importantly, what we groom is that appreciation for others and value and how you win with others.
And just hearing you speak right now, Sean, seemed like I'm not surprised, just because, like I said, I've gotten to know you well enough over the years. It's such a thoughtful approach, and I'm not surprised that amazing talent is hankering to come work for Numerator. So good on you, good on the people whom you've surrounded yourself with, and frankly, who have got you to be part of their team. So I think that's great. If I were to just sort of quickly just shift onto the other side, which is and what about other leaders who might come to you for mentorship and advice, not necessarily within Numerator or within your own organization? What's your advice to them?
A couple big things come to mind. Number one is if you truly want you to be successful as a leader, truly, what you have to understand is you've been given this gift, the gift to actually have a high influence of a circle around yourself. If you don't use that influence, as in you don't make choices, you don't have a stand, you're throwing that gift away. So my big advice is always have a vision, give your team a vision of what you're doing, but be willing to make a choice. Make choices, show they make choices. Make choices on the tough things, the things that everyone can make success on a bad thing, but I always talk a lot with my team around the what if scenarios. I actually say, if someone comes to me and their first line of their mouth is, wouldn't it be great if, I always know I'm in trouble, because it means they're going to tell me something absolutely fantastic that would probably be a distraction to the business. So being just really clear on the choices you make and make sure that that's connected to your vision. If you don't have that, you're not a leader and you can't make choices. The second thing I would tell people is you need to understand, in the same realm of circle of control, your circle of control is massively bigger for your benefit when you have surround yourself with people that are different than yourselves. But more importantly, you nurture them, you give them support, you're transparent with them on the business, the good, the bad, and the vision, and you let them make the decisions. Empowering others just exponentially increases the amount of decisions that create value. But the key thing is, I think a lot of leaders like to do that, but they do that at the beginning, where if you haven't created that vision and that focus, and you haven't demonstrated those choices, it makes it very hard for your team in the day to make those hundreds of little decisions that we have just said creates human ingenuity. Make sure all those decisions lead the right way for the business. And so making that connection between transparency and business ownership, but also a vision and a path is, I think, from a leadership point of view, critical. I spent a lot of time talking that. And then the third thing for me is building that culture of feedback, that culture of continuous improvement. And yeah, and that's what I usually say, and that culture of practice and being tough on each other. Nothing builds trust more than being tough on each other, so that when someone goes out, they're successful. As long as it's with the theme of we're working on each other tough because I want you to be successful. I value and I want to see you do well. So that's probably the three things I would say. To me, it's all wrapped up in kind of the two things that I've thought a lot about. And sorry, it's cheesy because I use quotes. I just do. I'm cheesy. One is my favorite quote's Albert Einstein, right? And so I'm going to boggle it. It's going to be bungled, but here goes. I remember coming from a Life magazine just months before he died, he gave an interview, and the reporter's son came with him and asked Albert Einstein for advice. Can you imagine? And Albert Einstein told this kid, I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna try. Be insanely curious and seek not to be a success, but to be of value. Like that to me is probably one of the most powerful things I think about building human ingenuity in a team. So that's number one. And then the humility one, the servant leadership quote is something that I talk with my team a lot. So that's probably the couple of advice I give the leaders that come to me and talk to me.
This has been such an amazing and fascinating conversation, Sean. We're about coming towards the end and a bit of a wrap up. But here's something that I do want to ask, which is, I came into this conversation with a certain set of questions and a certain framework, but you must have come into this also with some thoughts, and there might be something that you came into which, just because of my questioning, we never got to. Let me give you the last word. Is there something that's on your mind that you'd wish to share with our audience that I never got to because of the way I structured it?
No, I mean, hey, Saka, you did a great job. And this is a fantastic conversation. I think the only thing I would highlight, I mean, we've done a couple of things from a summary point of view. I probably would continue to highlight a couple of things that we didn't speak as much about is the willingness to take risks and lean in, transparent, and be really transparent with the business. We talk failures a lot at Numerator. We do that because we can lean in, and I'm the trust I place in my team to see me fail over and over and over again, probably on a daily basis. Some would say an hourly basis, but that would be too far for me. They can say daily, hourly may be bad. So that one, understand when you make choices, your risk and reward. I highlight that of everybody. I think that's a skill set that's lost in today's world. We're either really too quick to be conservative. And then the other big one that we didn't touch on is change management. One of my big learnings coming in a Numerator is how incredibly dangerous inertia is, but incredibly powerful. I spent 15 years on the other side trying to get these insights, and all my colleagues and friends have been so dying for great insights on the site. But when innovation comes and when things like this come, it's amazing for me to see the business leaders that lean into risk and change management and those that lean away from the business. And I do wonder, like, I'm at the point in my business where we segment our clients on who gets it, who's driving it, who wants to come with us as change agents. And I think about the exponential growth we've seen in this business, it's because of those change agents. And I probably don't feel blessed enough to get to work with them. And it's really raised for me who I want to work with in my life. And so it's an incredibly powerful negative inertia. And it's totally understand. I was probably the same. But I think that is something that leaders have to be really conscious of. It's easy to dismiss, but the challenges of change management when it comes to human ingenuity and leadership are probably more threatening to me than anything my competitors could do, anything anyone else, my team can build. So we didn't touch on change management, but it is a very powerful thing.
I was listening to a podcast, and there was a mention that somebody asked Satya Nadella, and I'm probably going to mess up the quote, so I hope
Here we
nobody
go.
says that this is Satya Nadella quote. But he was asked, "Hey, what will be the biggest unlock for all the AI investments that you're making? Like, what's the return on all of this money that you're putting into it?" And his response was change management.
Oh,
Because he
wow.
said, AI will redo the work processes, and if the organizations that are wanting to get on board AI don't change the way they do things, we won't be able to see the value unlock because of it. So I'm completely with you. Thank you again, Sean, for taking the time and sharing your insights. Our listeners would love to hear more from you. We will tag you and Numerator in our show notes. Thanks a lot, Sean.
Thank you.